We are about to begin chapter 5. This chapter dealing not only a continuation of subject of Ketubah, meaning marriage contract, but also the stipulation involved with the marriage contract, saying if the date of the taking effect of the contract itself, and additional payment which is above the contract itself, meaning sometimes for many reasons, can be just because of love or other reasons, a man commit himself not only the minimum amount the Ketubah, the marriage contract require him, but sometimes he commit himself to an additional, it's called tosefet. The issue is what happened if that agreement took effect at the time of the betrothal, meaning the engagement before they even marry. So, in one hand, we said that the person can add more, whatever he wish, the amount of the Ketubah. Yet the question is, if it is an addition to the Ketubah, and she passed away or other things happen, do we say that he is obligated to pay not only the Ketubah but also the addition or not? Since, as you know, the system of the Talmud is not only go to one subject, sometimes it's additional subject that connected directly or indirectly to the subject, we're going to discuss different cases of monetary disputation. One case, which is a practical halachot, licensed electrician was called to someone to fix a chandelier, fix a issue of a light fixture. The electrician came in and he was working on the big circuit breaker box, and while he was working on the box, guess what happened? He pulled out a large sum of money that was hidden. So the owner was standing there and he said, I can't believe it. He said, I gave up on that money long ago. I thought that I'll never find it. I hid it many years ago. And guess what happened? The electrician took all the money, put it in his pocket. So the owner said to him, what are you doing? It's mine. He said, no, you just declare that you gave up hope on this money, so it is mine. I found it, it's mine. So here we're going to discuss, it's not so simple, since it's involved the subject which called Yeush, which is the moment you're giving up hope, does that mean that item is basically departed from your domain or not? Another subject, since we're getting close to Pesach, is the selling of the chametz. It's not only selling the chametz, it's the Kabbalat Kinyan. As you know, those who are involved with the procedure know that you are writing the specification if you need to sell the chametz. And then you come to me and I give you some item, you lift it up, right? And I said, this is Kabbalat Kinyan, this is the approval of transaction, that you give me the power of attorney, in a sense, to represent you before the Bet Din or before the other entities who sell it to a non-Jewish person if it's chametz. Here we are not only with the chametz, but in general concept of contract that was made without kinyan. Kinyan meaning, again, is some type of not symbolic but physical transition that involve with a fact that take place by doing so, such as lifting up our object, removing object, etc., etc. In a simple manner, when a purchaser go before a seller and he paid for something, the moment the seller transmit the item to the buyer, that basically the manner of change status. The moment you lift up the item or move the item, that's kinyan. So the question is that in effect? The same manner we're going to discuss the issue of gitin, meaning if someone asks another fellow to either transmit the get or just to write it. So here is the issue. When it's vav of get, meaning the divorce bill, the husband need to do several things. Number one, he need to ask someone to be a scribe, to write it with the formulation of 2 witnesses, and they have to have 3 erudite people involved with this in general. And the next step is they need to have a emissary, if the person not wish to transmit it to her. The question is, if he told the shaliach just to write and not to transmit, is he obligated, or if she basically is not getting divorced if he is not transmitted to her? How far you have to specify what to do to your shaliach, to your emissary. The last subject, times allow, we're going to discuss, it's called matnash chivmera, a person who is close to the end of his life. For example, if he's terminally ill, or if he's the feeling that he is going to pass soon, he's giving a gift, or he commit himself, or he signed a note for a loan, or he did all kind of transactions. How do you take it? How serious you take those commitments, especially if, for example, he turn around and turn to be healthy, or if the commitment was without signing, just verbal expressions. So you see soon how it's all connected to our Mishnah, and as we said, this perek, and particularly this Mishnah, dealing with the marriage contract and the tosefet ketubah, the additional money that one gives in addition to the ketubah, how far is that take effect in case, for example, of crisis. Chapter 5, page 54b. אף על פי שאמרו בתולה גובה 200 ואלמנה מנה, אם רצה להוסיף אפילו 100 מנה יוסיף. Although the sages say that there is a structure, if she's virgin is 100, if it's a widow is 100, if she is first time it's 200. If the man wish to add more, as much as he likes to, here they use the term 10,000. So he can do it. What's the issue? The Gemara explain later. Nit armela or nit garsha, if she passed away, meaning she passed away, can be either one, or ben mina erusin, ben mina nisuin. Regardless if her passing happened at the period between the engagement and marriage, or after they got married, gova et hakol. So according to that view, she collected what? Both the ketubah itself and the additional money that he commit himself. Now, the truth is, later on, the Gemara on page 89b, and you see it also in Bava Metzia 17b, they say that it's incorrect, which means the idea of saying that both engagement and marriage is not necessarily correct. Why? Because if it's only engagement, they are not kirva, they are not attached to each other by marriage, you can impose upon him the ketubah, but the tosefet, the addition, you not. Anyway, we will learn it later. רבי אלעזר בן עזריה אומר, מן הנישואין גובה את הכל. Rabbi Dr. ben Azariah said, look, if they got married and it's already done deal, they married, so obviously she received what? Both. Let's say if she was a virgin, she received the 200 plus the additional marital commitment that he made originally. Yet, he said, mina erusin, if it happens only after they engage and they not get married yet, betula gova 200 ואלמנה מנה. She received only the structure, the stipulation the Beit Din's made, which is 200 for the first, 100 for those widows, right? But not the addition, שלא כתב לה, אלא על מנת לכונסה. The whole idea is that when he gets high and he commits himself to more than the regular requirement, he has his mindset that they're going to have a marriage life. Since things turn sour, whatever it is, he does not meant to commit himself to that extra money above the law requirement, the rabbinic law requirements. And therefore, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, you cannot, that's the way Rashi explained it, you cannot impose upon him that addition amount of money. Now, what happened the other way around? They have financial issues. And the husband wants to give her, with her consent, more or less than the amount that was written in the Ketubah. How do you treat it? Is she have the right, in a sense, to forgive, to let go some of the commitment that he made toward her in order to get the final stage of divorce? Meaning, unlike secular law, in the federal law, for example, so you make a, which call non-contestant divorce or separation, and by doing so, whatever the monetary issue that they resolve between them, no one cares. In Judaism, since the structure of the Ketubah made by the rabbinic law, then Rabbi Dr said, אם רצה, כותב לבתולה שטר של 200, והיא כותבת, התקבלתי ממך מנה. Rabbi Dr said, look, if he wants to give her less, they can make an agreement between them. Meaning, he writes the way that the rabbis instructed. If she is in the first time, betula 200, and she can write, I receive 100 from him in like a manner of receipt, which is, the Miri explained, even she agree upon receiving less than the Ketubah, he needs to write first the full amount that the sages instructed us, and she writes some type of receipt stating that she received 100 even she didn't receive anything. Alright? She allowed to do it if she wished to. That's what Yehuda views. ולאלמנה, מנה, והיא כותבת, התקבלתי ממך 50. The same applies to widow. So she can write that she received 50, even she received nothing, but he needs to write that he gave her 100. So in the sense, good morning. In the sense, it's kind of, as long as they both agree, whatever the financial arrangement is fine. Now, Rabbi Meir Omer, so wait, let's make sure we understand Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said that if the husband passed away, or if he divorced her, since she provided the receipt of X amount of money, she received the money, the amount that's left over. Rabbi Meir אומר, כל הפוחת לבתולה מ-200 ולאלמנה מנה, הרי זו בעילת זנות. He said that's unacceptable. He said there is a structure that the rabbi said, and the structure, they said clearly that there has to be X amount of money, and therefore he said it is prohibited to do it, as anyone who reduced the amount of the marriage contract to less than what the rabbi is required, it's considered a marital relationship like lascivious sexual relations, which means that he did not write any marriage contract at all, because it's not in a structure that the rabbis inquired. So the Gemara challenged that. The Gemara said, Pshita. First we talk about Tosefet Ketubah. Additional, he can write whatever he wishes to if he wants to give more. What's the problem? Mahu detema kitzuta vidu rabanan. You may think without the Mishnah that the rabbi said, since we have a structure of 200 and 100, you cannot add or subtract anything. Shelo levayesh et mi she'en lo. How do you do with a guy that he's poor? He cannot pay any addition. Why? Because let's face it, you have a group of guys. This guy gave addition 100. This guy gave 200. And this poor guy hardly commit himself to the Ketubah. So you may enter to your mind that it has to be the structure of 200, 100 and nothing in addition, in order to avoid embarrassment for those guys who cannot afford it. Kamash Melan, the Tanai and the Mishnah come to teach us that a person can add as much as he wished to. Im Ratzah leosif. So the Mishnah said, as much as he liked to add to the Ketubah, he allowed to add as much as he liked to. Ratzah lichtov la lo katanen. So the Mishnah did not say he wishes to write for her. Right? The language is he wishes to add. So you meant to say that this is like an extra gift that he gave her. It's not part of the Ketubah of the marriage agreement, and you may treat it as a total separate entity. Ela ratzah lehosif, if you wish to add more on her Ketubah, meaning that this is, as you know, the Torah did not speak about Ketubah. The Torah just speaks about husband-wife. The rabbis came out with the structure of Ketubah. They don't want to have, in his mind, easy to divorce her. So they have a structure of Ketubah, 100, 200. Now you talk about additional money to the Ketubah. So it means that they hold the same effect as the Ketubah itself. מסייע לרבי אייבו אמר רבי ינאי. אמר רבי אייבו אמר רבי ינאי, תנאי כתובה ככתובה דמי. He said that the stipulation of the marriage contract is considering the same, is comparable to the marriage agreement itself, is no different. So all the dinim, all the halachot of Ketubah, the same applies to the Tosefet. It's called Tna'ei Ketubah ki Ketubah mamash. All this addition is part of the Ketubah. Now, the Rosh, the Ran, many rabbis have an issue of Mechilat Ketubah, which means if they have all kind of financial issue, and she said, I let go. I don't want that money, right? So the question is, did he still obligated to pay the money, for example, alimony or all kind of other expenses? It's a here disputation. The Rosh and Ran disputed Rashi. Rashi hold that need to pay that addition. They hold only in regards to the gviyah, to the collection. But anyway, it's the whole idea of Tnai Ketubah, which means all these addition stipulation of the Ketubah, it's a disputation among the early sages. The Tosfot said that only the Tosefet Ketubah, only the additional. Rashi said that that's also included the Mazon Isha Ubanot, the support of her and the children. So now the Gemara speaks about 14 items, Yada Chazaka, 14 items involved in that Tosefet, that addition, that hold the rights the same as the Ketubah itself. Nafka mina, we learn from that all these 14 points. 1. Lemocheret, which means she sell the Ketubah. If you remember yesterday, it's a situation that the Ketubah have some type of lien, for example, on the property, commitments over all kind of valuable estates So she basically want to exercise part or full of the Ketubah by selling it, by selling this right. So the additional, the Tosefet, it's also included as part of the Ketubah. Number 2, velemochelet, which means that if she let go the payment of the Ketubah, that's included the additional part, the Tosefet. Rashi said, I'm just reading quickly Rashi, מוכר כתובתה או מוכלת כתובתה, מחלה ומכרה את הכל לפי שהכל קראו כתובה ולא אומרים לו מקרא כתובה אלא מנה 200. In short, Rashi said that the moment you incorporated the כתובה and the additional, the Tosefet together, it's all wrapped up as one. So the moment she sells, she forgives some, it's wrapping up everything, all the, including the additional. למורדת, Moredet is a special concept in halakha which we studied in the past. A wife that refused to have relation with the husband, not because of illness, just because of she doesn't want him. And basically the issue of staying in that marriage life while she refused to cohabit with him. So there is an halakha for sure, every incident is different, but there is an halakha that you reduce the amount of ketubah if that refusal continue on and basically they're not going to divorce. So eventually what happens is they reduce the amount of ketubah accordingly every week. There is a certain measurement, we're going to study it later, because eventually the divorce can be even without payment if that happened to be total truth. The Bach have a discussion what happened if the contract over the Tosefet was lost, and do you treat it as a Ketubah or not. Anyway, number 4 is lepogemet, which means if she agree upon that she receives some of the money of the Ketubah and the husband said that he gave her everything. Trace a situation, they decided to get divorced, okay, they agree upon the divorce, and the Ketubah said that he commit himself, I'm just throwing a number, 18 grand. He went, at the time that they are back and forth, as you know, sometimes divorce take long. He bought for her a car, right, and the car worth 20 grand. She agreed that she gets some of the money, I just use the name of car, but can be any other items, and the husband said that he already gave her all the money. Now you should remember that it's not necessarily paying the Ketubah at the time of the divorce. He can pay that earlier or late, depending upon the agreement between them. So in order for her to collect the rest of the money, the Mishnah is going to teach us on page 87 that she needs to take an oath. So for example, if they decided to get divorced and he commit himself to 18 grand and she said I received 10, he said I gave her 18, so she needs to take an oath in a bet din over that to make sure that it's correct. Otherwise, according to the Rashi and others, she cannot collect the rest of the money. Number 5, as we said, we have 14, right? Number 5, letova'at. You have a widow that comes before the bed din, and she wants either from the guardian, from the one that they put in the estate, the many cases, right? For example, if she is in a hospital or she is far away, or is a guardian, or is a appointed by the court, if she have all kind of drugs or other illnesses and she wants to collect some of the money from the late husband. So the idea is, if she go to the Bet Din, then the big question is what exactly she is asking for. Is she asking for the addition, for the Tosefet, to the Ketubah itself? Number 6, will overet al dat, which means that if she decided that she's no longer involved in Judaism, in a sense, they married with a certain decorum, with a certain agreements, and then she decided to go astray, right? for all kind of reasons. Many times, I may say most of the time, it's not necessarily connected to Judaism. They put it on a religion, but it's usually other reasons. But to make long story short, she decided to go in a different direction. So therefore, the idea is that sometimes there are situations like this that she can lose the Ketubah, right? And by losing the Ketubah, she can lose the Tosefet. We do not treat the Tosefet as a gift. We treat it, as we said earlier, the Tosefet, the additional money that he commit himself, the same as the Ketubah itself. Page 55, number 7, Leshevach. You have here increase of value, which means, you remember we discussed Nichsei Tzon Barzel, Nichsei Milog, properties that she bought with her, the principal, the interest, etc. So here you see a situation that the property of the husband carries a certain interest. Okay? So here she will not be able to collect the interest that the property of the husband have. Number 8, li shvu'ah. As we said earlier, based on the Mishnah in 87, if she needs to take an oath, she needs to take an oath also for the Tosefet, for the addition. Number 9, veleshvi'it, to the sabbatical year, as the marriage contract is not annulled with other debt in the sabbatical year, and this includes the additional sum as well, because guess what happened? The Torah said in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 2, that the moment you enter the sabbatical year, which is this year, everything is abrogated, it's annulled, right? Now, it applies to the Ketubah, but not the Tosefet, the addition. Basically, when it's come to Ketubah itself, you should note that Shemitah itself, it's not annulled the Ketubah in that sense, only if the husband paid some of the Ketubah and she put upon him as a loan for the rest. So biblically speaking, since the loan abrogated, he can take an advantage. That's basically the view of Rav. The Gemara said it in Tractate Gittin, page 18. Shmuel said that even he is not paid some of the Ketubah, but if she make it as a loan, so therefore the Shemitah, the sabbatical year, abrogated it. If you remember when we discussed prosbul and the idea of Hillel instituted the prosbul, people remember that? So that's the whole idea of prosbul, that people should not take advantage of those loans. But in a dry law, the moment you have the sabbatical year, it's over. So but here we said it's not the Tosefet, the addition. Number 10, ulkotev kol nechasav levanav. If someone who writes a document transferring all of his property to his sons and leave his wife a specific plot of land for her marriage contract, so this teaches that she received both the main and the additional Tosefet sum of her contract only from the land. That's basically based on the Mishnah in Pe'ah, Tractate 3. Ligbot min karka, which means that she collects the payment from the land. So here is the idea is that she collected from the land, but not the addition. Number 12, umin haziburit. There is Gemara in Tractate Gittin, page 48b. There are 3 different categories in properties. Ziburit is the lowest, then you have Beinonit, middle, and you have Idit, which is the highest expensive property. So when she collected the money of the Ketubah or the Tosefet, she collected from what's the lowest level of the property versus other loans that you collected from the middle one. Again, as we said, this is a discussion in different tractates. This is the framework, rabbinic framework, which applies to 25 years period, which means 25 years and after the passing of the late husband, so as long as she is living in the house of her father, and she did not collect any fund from the orphan at that period of time, it means mechila, it means that she let go, that she forgives, and therefore she cannot collect that, she cannot claim for assets. That's basically Mishnah that we're going to study on page 104, that follow the view of the majority of the sages. So she also let go the addition. It resonates to me, the story of the submarine Dakar. If you remember, the Israelis at the early stage of the country, they lost the submarine with the soldiers. And it was assumption that they may come back, and no one knows when. So for a long time, those women were in a limbo. They are deserts, right? But in a general speaking, here we speak about the framework of time. We limited, unlike the Dakar, here we said that we limited the time. Time is 25 years. You have it, I think, in my best knowledge, in some countries, in a banking business. When people do not come and collect in a certain amount of years, I think in governmental also, it can transfer to the government or etc. There is a certain framework. So 25 years we said she lost her right to access that, and not just that, the sum of the additional. And number 14, Ketubot bnin dichrin. That's what we said many times, that this applied to a marriage contract, that the male offspring inherit the mother's dowry. When the husband passes away, in additional to inheritance, they receive together with other brothers. So you see, all these halachot applies equally to the tosefet, to the additional sum of the marriage contract. Now, the Brisker Rav, the Rav of Brisk, derived here from the famous Rambam. The Rambam said that we have the regular 3 brachot in the Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon, the grace after meal, which is biblical. So you have in Birkat Hamazon the 3 brachot, Hazan et Haolam, right? Al Haaretz V'al Hamazon, Rachemna, Uvnei Yerushalayim Mir HaKodesh. That's the first 3 brachot. And the 4th one is rabbinic. So 3 brachot is biblical, the 4th one is rabbinic. So you have in a chatuna, you have in a wedding, you have Sheva brachos, right? You have an additional, another 7 blessings that involve. So he holds that the Sheva brachos, it is part of the Birkat Hamazon. It's a part of the grace after meal. And it's the same way as you treat it with the pot, with the bread, with the zimun, everything else, you treat the Sheva brachot. So he holds in comparison to here, that all the tosefet, the additional money of the Ketubah, it's the same way as the Birkat Hamazon. You said that the additional 7 is part of the Birkat Hamazon. The same here, the tosefet is part of the Ketubah itself. Now Gemara speak about 4 disputation between 2 central yeshivot. One is yeshiva of a city called Pumpedita, which we said many times is a central learning in Babylon. And there's another center of learning that is called Mata Mechasya. So here are the 4 disputations. Number 1, Itmar, Ketubah nin dechrin Pumpedita amre lo tarfa mimushabdei. If you have this manner of Ketubah that involve with the dowry for the sons, so the sages of Pumpedita said it is not seized from the lien property that has been sold by the father. It's because we learn in the Mishnah, page 52b, that the text of the stipulation is they will inherit the money aside for the mother and marriage. Yertun tnain, that's the way it's written there. So therefore, you do not collect it from the chasim meshu'abadim, from the property that is already have a lien. The sages of the Mata Mechasya said it is seized from the lien property that has been sold. So the way that they learn from the Mishnah is yisvut nan. Yisvut meaning that they collected. So we put the conclusion, so we follow the Pumpedita. Second one, mitaltele v'itnu be'enayu, which is if you have a movable property and these objects are in their pure, unadulterated state at the time of the execution of the marriage contract after the husband's death. So they said, "Vitnu be'enayu belo shvua, leitnu be'enayu." So the whole idea of her taking an oath is she collected it from these orphans. Maybe the husband already allocates something for her in order to avoid her going after the orphans. But leitnu be'enayu, for example, if they lost it, pumbedita amre belo shvua, mata mechase amre bishvua. So the pumbedita said it's without taking your oath, and the mata mechase said that need to take your oath. Ve'ilcheta belo shvua. So here you see how when we discussed earlier the licensed electricians, this is a part of the idea. The question is if he gave up hope, if he didn't give up hope, how far he gave up hope, where exactly it was found. But in general term is the moment you have Yeush, you have the idea of said, I never believe that I can find it, then it's an issue if you still own it. Anyway, the third one, Yiched la ar'a be'arba'a mitzrahana. He designated the property for her and he said, okay, north, south, east, west, that's the field. Belo shvua, without taking an oath. Bechad mitzra, which is, if it's in a one borderline, it's just, he mentioned one borderline of all the fourth. Pumpedita amri belo shvua, she's still collecting the Ketubah without taking a vow or oath, because he already designated a specific location and he said it. Nemata mechase amri bishvua. Since he doesn't mention the whole four corner of the field, it means that he didn't say this is specifically I designated you to collect from the Ketubah. So we concern that maybe he had another movable object for her, and therefore in order for her to collect that she need to take an oath. V'ilcheta belo shvua, and the halacha is that she doesn't need to take this oath. Follow the city of Pampuduya. Now we go to the fourth disputation. Amar le'edim kitvu shar v'chitmu ve'avu lei. So a person wants to assign, for example, to give away land, and he said to the witnesses, write a promissory note, write something, and sign it and give it to so and so. For example, the person is ill, right, and he wants to do that. Or for example, as we said, the selling of chametz, right, Elliot? Yeah. So they said, "Lo tzarich leimluche bei." So you don't need the witness to go back to one who gives it and said, "You still want us to write this." You have the assumption that kinyan is for that purpose. Lo kanu minei. If they didn't do the kinyan sudar, as we explained, selling the chametz, they ask you to lift up something, right? My garter, something, right? So he said, "Kumpedita amri lo tzarich imluche bei." So they don't need to have the witness come and consult. Before b'nemata mechasi amri tzarich imluche bei. Why? Because he can change his mind from that mission, because it's still not having kinyan. Vehilcheta and the halacha. You have to ask him before you write that note. So the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, asked a question, why do you need to take a counsel with him? For example, if you have a regular emissary, so you tell him to do something, he doesn't come back again and again and ask you for all the specification. You tell him once and done deal. So basically he can make a kinyan and he make the zikayon to the second one. So why you need to do it? So he said, since it's the gift, matana shayechet lanoten, the gift is belong to the giver, that's the reason you need to go through all this process. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah Omer, so you remember in the Mishnah, Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah said, if they're already married, that's a different story. She can collect everything, the Ketubah and some additional. But If they only engage, that's a different story. She can collect the Ketubah, but not the Tosefet, right? Because the whole purpose of him writing it, you remember, is only to get married. Otherwise, that additional was not in his mind. Itma Rav ורבי נתן, רב ורבי נתן have a disputation. אחד אמר הלכה כרבי אלעזר בן עזריה, ואחד אמר אין הלכה כרבי אלעזר בן עזריה. They disputed if we follow das halacha or Rabbi Elazar ben Azara or Tana Kama that hold that she even collected Tosefet, the additional sum, even she divorced or become widow after the betrothed. Tistayem, we concluded the Rabbi Natanu, the Amar Alachak Rabbi Elazar ben Azara, the Shamin Rabbi Natan, the Azil Batar Umdena. There is a concept of Umdena. Umdena meaning that we have an estimate. We said that Bet Din go by the many cases. You do not have a clear-cut number. So you have some sort of appraisal or estimate. You have what is a mindset of one who gives. So you follow his deeds and you assume that that was in his intent. So since we have the idea that this Tosefet, this addition, was for reason, not just for fun or for free, right? So he gave her that extra Lamborghini for a reason, right? So he have the assumption that they're going to be together, etc., etc. He doesn't give her just for fun, right? So she is not receiving this additional money if she divorces or become a widow after the betrothed. That follow Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So where we found that that's the rule of Rabbi Natan, the Amar Rabbi Natan lachak Rabbi Shimon shezuri ben sukan. If you have a terminally ill person, so if this sick person said to a witness, write a get to my wife, and he didn't say give it to her, so they write the get and give it to her. Why? Because we have umdana, we have the assumption that when he said while he was ill that they would give a get, he meant to say that it's also give it to her, not just writing it. So usually when the husband, that's the Gemara in Gittin, page 65, the husband make a shaliach, an emissary, to divorce his wife. He needs to tell the shaliach clearly, unequivocally, right, lucidly. He needs to tell him that you need to write it and you need to hand it over to her. And if he said only kitvu get liishti, write a get to my wife, they have to write, but they don't have to hand it over to her. So we learn in Gittin, page 65, that if someone departed for a long journey overseas, and he said to someone, write a get to my wife, even he didn't say give it to her, they're allowed to go ahead and also give it to her. And the reason, because we have this umdana, we have this assumption that when he tell us to write, he meant to say that proceed it. So here we said that Rabbi Shimon Shuzuri said that that also applies to someone who's terminally ill. 5b, ubitrumat maaser shel demai, meaning we have the law in Eretz Israel that you have to take a tithe and give it, right? The Kohen. The issue is you have the assumption that amei aratzot, people who are not educated, we assume that they do that. They put a tithe. But many times we have da mai, de mai. We don't know for sure that they did it. So in general, if you collect produce from Am Haaretz, for someone who's not educated, and in order to make sure that they have ma'asor, the tightening it, you take a tithe and that mix with other consecrated item that designated for the priest. So Rabbi Shimon Shizuri hold, that's in the Tractate Demai, chapter 4, the first Mishna, that he can ask the Am Haaretz, the uneducated person, if he tightening it. And if he said yes, we take his word and follow. V'Rav lo azil batar umdena. So you mean to say that Rav not go by this estimate of the Bet Din, what is the mindset of the giver? Ve'itmar matnat shchiv mera, if someone is terminally ill, give a gift. So I explained in my book, Rashi said here, אינה צריכה קניין, שתקנו חכמים שדבריו ככתובים ומסורים, שלא תתערב דעתו עליו. The sages put an institution that since he's getting to the end, and he may get, in his mind, like a little bit insane, etc., etc. אמר רב, הרחבי אתרי רכשי כמו רוכבי הרכש, כלומר נתן בה שתי כוחות. So Rashi explained, when we see it also in Bava Batra 152 in Rashbam, that that is a tarted desarted. There's two different things, which means in one hand you give him the power to make those decisions at that time. On the other hand, you ask of the effectiveness of that decision. So here you see also a disputation, not only in this, but you see a disputation between Rashi and Tosfot. What happened is, if you have on Shabbat, you go to Am Haaretz and you said, did you tightening it? So we hold Mishum Oneg Shabbat, because we have the mitzvah to have the joys of Shabbat. So we are lenient, and we have the assumption, after Shabbat, we allow him to do the tightening. On Shabbat, Oneg Shabbat, he can do it. The Tosfot said no. We have the assumption that Am Haaretz, b'Shabbat lo meshaker, the person who is uneducated, he will not lie on Shabbat. So Tosfot hold that even in the middle of the week, if he said, I tighten, you take his word and you believe him. Anyway, מתנת שכיב מרש כתוב בקניין, רב בבי רב משמי דרב אמרי, ארכבי תרי ריחשי, so he put him in a metaphorical manner, like on the two horses, which means that the one who is terminally ill have two intent. One, that is a gift of him, and also the gift of someone who is healthy, that do the regular manner of kinyanim. ושמואל אמר לו, ידענה מה ידון בי. I have an issue, I have a quandary how I treated this type of gift, because it may be that by doing this kinyan, it's abrogated the gift, even he intend to give that gift. בבירה משמי דרב אמרי ארכבי אתרי רכשי, is like two horses, הרי היא כמתנת בריא, והרי היא כמתנת שכיב מרע. הרי כמתנת בריא איתים עמד, אינו יכול לחזור בו, that if he become healthy, he cannot back out from that gift. Imagine, the person was ill, he gave a gift, now he feel good, he cannot get it back, right? הרי כמתנת שכיב מרע, שאם אמר הלוואתי לפלוני, הלוואתו לפלוני. So if he put a kinyan of loan to someone, so it's basically belonging. So even he can add this without kinyan sudar, but in that sense, by his expression of someone who's ill, we can do acquirement of that loan. ושמואל אמר לא ידענו מה ידון בה, שמא לא גמר להקנותו אליו בשטר. The only thing he have in his mind is this matter of document, that it means, usually Rashi said that you do the inscription of the document after you do the kinyan. ואין שטר לאחר מיתה, and that manner of documentation is not effective after the death of the owner. So the Maharam Shif explained here that Shchiv Mera, if he does Aknayat Alva'a, is so he can do it when the moment that he is healthy, he can, it's not in effect. But the receiving a loan applies solely if he pays. 56. Elat Ravayu az lebatar umdena. Both Rav and Rabbi Natan goes by that estimated that we have in the rabbinic court in the mindset of the giver. Man de'amar, the one who said halacha, the one who said that they follow halacha, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, he said that this one is arusa engaged, doesn't have the additional sum. Shafir. So we understand clearly that he is not going by the umdena, but he goes only by the tosefet. The other one, man de'amar en halacha, the one who said that halacha is not follow Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, will all go by the Tanakama, who hold that even the one who engaged collect the tosefet, the additional sum that the man, the chosn, commit himself. Hachanamne umdan da'atau. We have this umdana, this assumption in his mind that the husband said that this is what he put in addition to her Ketubah, mishum ikruve da'atau, which means he wants to ingratiate himself at the time of engagement. He was so high that he wants to do that. So by giving her the Lamborghini, he really make her happy, right, at that time. So therefore, if he passed away or if he divorced her, she collect even just as engaged that money. So here you see a different view between Rashi and Tosfot. Rashi said that Rabbeinu, it's applied to Rav, period. Tosfot said that it can be Rav. He bring his sources and he said the idea is not Rav, is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. So basically what we understand that if a person betrothed a woman and he wrote a Ketubah and a Tosefet, the original marriage documentation, in additional sum of money, so it makes no difference in that sense. If then he passed away or divorced her, she received both the Ketubah and Tosefet because it's all incorporated as one. Now, that's one view of Tanakam. Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah disputed, then he said no. If it happens that if after the marriage he passed away, then she received both the Ketubah and the additional sum. But if it's only after they engage, he said she received the Ikar Ketubah, the essence of Ketubah, which is Betula 200 and Almanah 100, right? But the Tosefet, the additional, she will not receive according to Rabbi Lazar ben Azariah if they are only engaged.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai